rescue, relieve, and restore. When Haiti was devastated by a terrible earthquake in that late afternoon of 2010, tens of thousands of hopeless victims gravitated to the grounds of Grace International, seeking shelter, sustenance, and spiritual reinforcement. The Spirit of the Lord touched our hearts, and our mission became clear. We understood that God would use us as an instrument of His love. We understood that these tens of thousands of terrified and desperate souls were in dire need of rescue, of shelter, of potable water and food, of medical care, and most importantly, of assurance that God was still with them here in Grace Village, here with the promise of hope and of healing. Rescue. Rescue from rubble and ruin, from terror and desperation, with emergency lodging and medical aid. But for you who revere my name, the Sun of Righteousness will rise with healing in its rays, and you will go out and frolic like well-fed calves. Relieve. Food and drinkable water. As an instrument of God's love, we rose to the task of providing the surviving victims with nourishment for their bodies as well as their souls. The task seemed impossible, but God was with us, and with the aid of the loving body of Christ, the provisions came. Tens of thousands, adults, the elderly, and children were saved. Feeding the hungry, in need of food, of comforting words and hope. Feeding the Spirit and praising the Lord. Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ. Restore. To provide educational resources, and all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. Restoration. Finally, the task to rebuild these broken lives, to provide adequate housing, sanitary living conditions, a stable social environment that includes education and adequate medical care, and always to be a channel to the love of God through places of worship and daily resources of spiritual strength and inspiration. Shelter. The first order of business was to establish a community of tent housing for a population that quickly grew to more than 20,000 on our church land. By the grace of God, the emergency shelters were soon in place and functioning. At the very least, they were provided with a sense of place away from the horror and nightmare that Port-au-Prince had become. And then, the vision to provide more, our mission to provide sustainable housing and village environments for the multitude of homeless victims that had come to us for aid. Thank God we are doing it day by day with the help of the loving body of Christ. More and more people are given the opportunity for security, sustenance, and soul-satisfying Christian spiritual growth. We're building adequate housing, a refuge for the poor, a refuge for the needy in their distress, a shelter from the storm and a shade from the heat. Rescue, relieve, and restore. That was our mission during the dreadful days of 2010, and that is still our mission today.